welcome to our presentation. We are the in-house communication team of Johnson & Johnson family of companies, and my team members are Malika Selamitu, Yashiram Kilawan, Elizabeth, and myself, Nelson Mushifari. We are here to talk about the lawsuit that has been filed against us, an amount of $72 million, and that's what we'll discuss through our slides.
So this is the overview of issue. Johnson & Johnson, the world famous brand of healthcare products, is facing a lawsuit due to the death of a 62 years old woman named Jacqueline Fox from Alabama. The lawsuit against the consumer company stated that Mrs. Fox was diagnosed with ovarian cancer of the regular use of Johnson & Johnson body powder for over 35 years. Unfortunately, the woman did die in October 25, and the lawsuit was taken over by her foster son, Marvin Slater. Eventually, the company did admit that some of their products contained cancer-causing ingredients. In addition to that, they had to pay a total sum of $72 million, which part of it, $10 million in compensation and $62 million as punitive damages to the victim's family. This issue was spread like fire through media coverage, and we have a small video from Bloomberg.
What exactly has Johnson & Johnson been accused of? In many cases, there's a long legal history here.
Yeah, so Johnson & Johnson has been accused of knowing of studies that suggested there's a link between using baby powder genitally and ovarian cancer, and that they've never put a warning on the label.
And what has Johnson & Johnson said in return? Indeed, there have been many of these cases. Plaintiffs have won some, others have been, they haven't won others. So what have they said in response? What's the company said?
So Johnson & Johnson defends the safety of talcum powder, which is what baby powder is made of, says that it has known about the studies, but concluded that whatever association there is weak, that the data was flawed, and that they feel very confident in continuing to sell it without a warning label.
I mean, it's an absolutely fascinating story, Susan, and a gut-wrenching, tragic one as well. And give us a sense of what's heading to court. In St. Louis, we understand that there's going to be a hearing coming up in the next month.
Yeah, so next month, there's a woman who is 62 years old and was diagnosed with ovarian cancer a couple of years ago and had used baby powder for 20 years. And she, like the other women before her, claiming that Johnson & Johnson should have at least put a warning on the label, then women are free to make a choice, but that they didn't know, and now they're suing the company. There was an earlier case in St. Louis in the end of February, which prompted this story, and in that case, the woman had died before the case came to trial, but her family was awarded $72 million.
Yeah, it's amazing, articulated in your story of the tragedy, and indeed the son who seemed to break into tears when he got that award. But tell us about what this all means for Johnson & Johnson, because they've really cashed in on the branding of the talcum powder, of the baby element, and the fact that it can be used by anyone and everyone. How much is this going to hurt their bottom line?
Yeah, so Johnson & Johnson has been selling baby powder almost since the company started, and it's really the foundation for their baby business, and also for their image as the baby company. We all know the products that they sell, so I think this hurts it from its image, but it doesn't necessarily have an impact on its bottom line yet. The awards are sizable, certainly for the families, but not by Johnson & Johnson standards. But I think the greater potential harm to the company comes from what people think about a company that's being accused of hiding some fairly important information from its customers.
So do you have a sense if there's any sort of debate within the company? You have some signs indicating that in fact this may be carcinogenic. You have the company here saying that's not, the company overall saying that it's not. Is there a debate going on within Johnson & Johnson, you think, over how it should proceed as these cases come up?
You know, I don't know the real answer to that. What I can say is probably any company in a position like this would have to be having some kind of discussion. And I think it really depends ultimately who prevails. Is it the lawyers? Is it the executives? Is it the scientists? Is it the marketers, who now have a problem on their hands?
All right, Susan, thank you so much. That's
Thank
Susan
you.
Murfield of Bloomberg Business Week. You can read her latest story in the latest issue of Bloomberg Business Week on newsstands and online.
So we're now talking about impact on the organization. So Johnson & Johnson just paid $72 million to the victim's family, and it has really turned into a crisis as they had no media coverage first of all, and we just lost a big case. It is good to mention now that they had around more than 60 complaints before that since 2006, I think. And the only comment that was made is by Carol Goodrich, spokeswoman of Johnson & Johnson Company, who said we sympathize with the plaintiff's family, but firmly believe that the safety of cosmetic tab is supported by decades of scientific evidence showing that they have no compassion, that they are not even interested in the crisis at all. So I move on with the SWOT analysis. So the strengths. It is an innovative company in healthcare products. Johnson & Johnson is a powerful company which can easily overcome this situation since they keep updating their portfolio of new products. They gain customers' loyalty and they are well known for baby products mostly. They won the Humanitarian Award in 2011 by the United Nations for their leading role in its Healthy Mother, Healthy Child initiative. And they have good advertising campaigns, thus a reputable brand presence all around the world. Their weaknesses. With the case they were involved, they are quite losing their reputation towards women. The decrease of women as customers, but their weaknesses also is that they have no compassion since the case was going on. The trust they have built throughout the years has decreased among the population, and Twitter has become one main tool to voice out their concerns. The threats, the opportunities, sorry. To prove that they are still a trustworthy company and creating new products can be a way to do so. Trying a different campaign to, like for example, can bring a campaign for cancer awareness to show that they sympathize with the family and the other complaints they received. The threats, the increased in competition from Reckitt Benckiser, Himalaya and Colgate Family Company, who proposes the same types of products, and the overwhelming products since the case can be a threat in the mind of people as they will be afraid to buy them now. I will now leave the floor to Marvin, who will talk about the key stakeholders.
So here we are about the key stakeholders that we have found during our research. So as you can see, first of all, you have the consumers, that is the people who buy the products. You have the employees who work for Johnson & Johnson over 60 countries over the world. Shareholders, the management and board of directors, the scientific community with which Johnson & Johnson works really closely with. You have the regulatory bodies, that is the government, which means 60 different governments, since we have 60 different countries, the FDA and other scientific regulators, and external, whether it is manufacturers, contractors, and suppliers. Moving on. We have divided it in 3 different stakes to see which one are where. So we have equity stakes, that is shareholders, management, and board of directors. And the way we're going to keep communicating with them throughout this issue is using the two asymmetrical technique, that is dialogue strategy, which involves collective and productive problem-solving meetings whereby decisions are taken and rules are implemented, since they are the ones who actually vet the last product that can be sold or campaigned upon. The economic or market stakes are consumers, employees, and external, as I told you, suppliers, manufacturers, and contractors that are outside the Johnson & Johnson facilities. So the communication technique here would be the one-way symmetrical, that is informational strategy, which opts for tactics like memos, publicity stunts, brochures, magazine, annual and monthly reports and surveys, because when there is an issue with consumers, even employees are involved because they are the ones who actually make the products, who communicate with the outside world. So here we have surveys that are going to keep the communication flowing. Influencer stakes are the regulatory bodies and the local, state and country government, the FDA, and also scientific community, which implies scientists and researchers. The communication technique for this particular stage would be informational and persuasive strategy by encouraging regular meetings and discussions, educational and awareness campaigns, debates and consultations even. Also, we could organize visits to GMG facilities by state and national policymakers. Next, I give the floor to Shefali, who will talk about our human resource and responsibility.
Thank you, Malvi. So after the lawsuit problems that crop up for Johnson & Johnson family, we'd like to show you, bring to light that we have trusted employees that work for us. To start with, I'll introduce you to our communications lead, Malvi Selabitu. Well, her job is she takes in charge all the internal and external communication concerning our company, and she makes sure that all information circulated are done with respect to the reputation of Johnson & Johnson. So basically her work is to bring the positive image of Johnson & Johnson, which has been done so far, and carry with due respect. Our second employee is Yashley, a very devoted media relations manager and spokesperson. He's in charge of the connection between the organization and the media. As we all know, every reputed organization will always be in charge of media, whether they come up with issues or just for everyday purpose. So Yashley, he takes charge that he communicates the right information to the media, and also acts as a spokesperson, where he will defend Johnson & Johnson and be the bridge between the public's voice and our company. So most importantly, it is to be known that our company will definitely be entitled to comments, whether negative or positive, and Yashley will take charge that he delivers the good information to the public. Because once the public is aware of an information, they will definitely lead it through social media networks. Moreover, have Annelise Albert, who is the social media manager, where she is the pillar of the organization. Why the pillar of the organization? Because, as we all know, we all have an account on social media network, being Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, and so on. That is why she's here to monitor each and every comment, and she makes sure that even though there is a negative comment on our sites or our blogs, she'll make sure that she will forward the good information to the public. And myself as the account manager, I take charge of all the finances of the company and make sure that the flow prevails with regards to the accounts. The needs and the objectives of the clients are very important for us, because we need to know how much products we need to deliver throughout the world and how much profit is being inflowed in our company. And I have the responsibility of making the clientele run on a long-term basis. Each and every product that is being launched in the world will think on a long-term basis. That is why my work assigned is to make sure that my company is being able to respond to each and every critics of the customers. Moving on to the strategic recommendations. Specify, as you know, that Tylenol has been the ingredient that has caused cancer. in our talcum powder and other Johnson & Johnson products. So that is why, since the lawsuit event, I'll make sure, my company will make sure that Tylenol is no more an ingredient in our product. In the leaflets that is attached to our products, we will definitely specify, maybe in bold characters, to attract the attention of our new and long-term customers, that Tylenol is no more an ingredient in our product. Active on social media platforms, this is very important. This is where you get to create a connection and relationship with your customers, and in fact, you are able to convey messages quickly. A strategic recall of our products, this is very important. If I can draw a parallel to a product a few weeks earlier, as we all know Mars chocolate, there has been a piece of paper in Mars chocolate. As we all know that throughout the world, we are all fond of chocolates, be it any brand. But Mars, being a very important brand, will make sure that they made sure that they stop the production for a few weeks, and then they launch it with new strategies. But us, Johnson & Johnson, we've been making great products throughout the years, be it for babies, be it for women, and for other persons as well who could use it. That is why a strategic recall of our products is mandatory. Furthermore, a new PR campaign, Johnson & Johnson, your baby's testified cancer-free product. Of course, since the issue cropped up, many people will be skeptical to buy Johnson & Johnson products, but that doesn't mean that we stop here, or we fear of a threat. That is why we are coming up with PR campaign that Johnson & Johnson's or babies testified cancer-free. So seeing this, being able to look at it, mothers, aspired mothers, would be able to probably look into it again and think of it as a product that would be able to be used for their babies. Last but not least, strong affiliation with health partners. Since cancer is being, there are so many NGOs fighting for it, we'll link ourselves, we'll connect together so that we can bring forward new health concepts that is attached to our Johnson & Johnson products, and also make sure that the trust is built again. Trust is very important for any brand, and especially for Johnson & Johnson. We want to keep that trust, and we want to keep the same customers again, and even add more. So that is why strong affiliation with health partners is very important for us.
Moving on, following Chevallier's introduction to being active on social media platforms, we have found that media monitoring and social media response is very, very important, since we have to keep a supervision about what is being talked about in the media, whether it's about the lawsuit, whether it's about the product, whether it's about any other company that's focusing on baby powder, because most of the baby powders out there contain talc, and it is important to keep up to date about what people are saying about it. So in order to maintain this constant contact with people, it is very important to be active on these following sites, because Twitter has been the most common denominator between people and companies about when the lawsuit was happening. And also about us, as I said, about the media monitoring, print and online media, whether it is newspapers, magazines, brochures that are being spread around by people who are against the lawsuit or for the lawsuit. So this is the end of our presentation. Thank you for your attention.
Do you have questions?
If anyone has any questions.
We are open to all questions.
I think it has been clear.
Okay, thank you for
Thank you for your attention.